Well, hello and welcome to Talk Time. Now, this week, I'm going to be doing one of the interviews that I consider most exciting and very important. We're going to be talking with an extraordinary gentleman, and we're going to be talking about the joys, the pain, the dangers of public service. Welcome to Talk Time. So I'm talking about Mr. Daniel Domelevo, who used to be Auditor-General. And you know the story and everything that happened and so on. Now we like to pick it from the horse's own mouth. So you're welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much. I am grateful for the opportunity.
To start with, what are you doing now?
That's very interesting. I'm on retirement, but then not tired. Some people tease me that I've retired into active service because I've been providing consultancy across the globe for some of the international financial institutions, which has sent me to several countries in Africa and Asia. And so that's what I've been doing since I left office.
What are some of these financial organizations that you consult?
Well, I consult for World Bank as a short-term consultant. So that has sent me to Zimbabwe, South Sudan, Liberia, several African countries. And I'm also a member of the Audit and Finance Committee of the Global Funds. Global Fund was established for the eradication of HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. And so I'm a member of the Audit and Finance Committee. The committee meets very often because it has a fully delegated authority over the finances and audit of the fund. So you don't send a request for approval for fund and etc. to the board. It comes or it stops at the committee level. So we meet very often for this purpose.
Are you still working on Ghana?
No, I don't do anything in Ghana. I only visit Ghana.
Is there a reason why you're not working on Ghana?
No, there has not been any request for my service in Ghana. I am more than happy to work for Ghana. And to be honest with you, there is nowhere better than home. And I tell people very often that if you are not interested in building your father's house or your mother's house, then there's something wrong with you. So you can't just be going around and ignore home. So anytime the need arises, I avail myself.
But the World Bank has a lot of interest in Ghana.
Yes.
Is the World Bank not deploying you to work in Ghana?
No. Interestingly, in the World Bank, when you are an international consultant, you don't work in your country.
Oh.
In fact, you cannot be an international staff working in your country. We have the local staff, that is the local high, and the international high. If you're international high, you don't work in your country to avoid conflict of interest and be sure that you are above board or neutral in the decisions you take.
So it would appear then that those who got you out of the audit service have managed to secure their interest. They've managed to get what they wanted to get.
Exactly. They did, and they also succeeded in marketing me very well, for which I'm grateful to them for the marketing that they did pro bono. Mm-hmm. But then they secured their interest, interestingly, and people meet me and say that, oh, congratulations, the Supreme Court has ruled in your favor. And I said, they ruled in the president's favor, not in my favor. And if you want, I can explain that to you.
Please explain, please explain.
What I mean is that, first and foremost, I think I was inconveniencing the presidency or the government with the type of audit I was doing. So they needed me out. 2020 also being an election year. If my report came out by June 2020 before election, they didn't know what it was going to be. So they won by pushing me aside. That is fine. But you also recall that the president has appointed a lot of people occupying such positions, including the current Auditor-General, electoral commissioner, etc. And the provisions in the Constitution which protect the Auditor-General is the same which protect all of them, including the Chief Justice. So if the judgment had gone against me, they will have all be candidates in line for firing. anytime.
Well, depending on the work they do, whether or not the presidency is satisfied with their work.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They're assuming a new president comes and the Supreme Court says that, okay, independent constitutional body, once appointed by the president, can be kicked out. Then the Chief Justice, in fact, in the ruling they themselves, they stated it. So I told people that the judges were protecting themselves than me. People think they were ruling in my favor. If you read the judgment, you will see they stated very clearly that the Chief Justice may be asked to proceed on leave in the course of a judgment, or just in the process or the course of election. The electoral commissioner may be asked to step aside and go on leave and appoint an acting one appointed. So I think the president won twice, so it's 2-1. He won twice and I won one.
But the point is that the Supreme Court decision,
yes,
didn't mean anything. It came after you could not be reinstated.
Yeah. Yes and no. In terms of addressing my right, yes, I agree with you that I thought that was a bit of justice delayed and hence justice denied. But it's better late than never. Now the decision or the interpretation has been done. And I think going forward, such a thing will not happen anymore. So that's where I see the positive end. That look, no president will come, or the current president will not be thinking of doing same to any other independently established office in the country anymore. So it is two sides. On my personal note, yes, I agree with you, but for the nation, it is still not too late. It is good because that office and independent constitutional bodies are going to be there for until Jesus comes.
Why do you think that the presidency or the current government was hell-bent on getting you out of office?
They are best placed to answer this question. But if I can guess, this is my conviction or my belief, and I stated that in my response to the president, that the type of audits or the assignments I was undertaking was creating inconvenience to the presidency. If you remember, that was the time when I had surcharged senior minister and we were in court. And they raised very interesting issues. One, they raised the issue that the evidence of work done was not made available to the auditors because it was of national interest or national security. That's why it was not given to them. Even though there were other issues like not following the procurement law and etc. But let's dwell on the substantive issue, the evidence of work done for which they didn't make it available to the auditors. And our argument before Justice Efia was that it was an afterthought. It was never a national security issue because in January 2018, the audit observation was issued by the team. Their response is there. It didn't mention anything about national security. In March 2018, the management letter or the draft audit report, if you want to call it, we call it management letter, was issued to the Ministry of Finance. The response which came had nothing to say about national interest or national security. In June, I issued the audit report to Parliament. In August, senior minister, the then senior minister, Osafo Mafu, wrote me explaining the circumstances under which the people were working without the evidence. And he didn't mention anywhere in that letter any issue of national security. It is only when the surcharge came and they went to court before they say it was national security issue. So our argument was that it was not anything bothering on national security. But be it as it may, let's assume with that admitting that it bothered on national security. Our argument was, is national security exempted from audit? We wanted the law, which shows that national security should not be exempted from law, from audit, because even the National Security Office, the ministry, is audited. So what exempted national security, now not even a national security ministry, but something in the domain of senior minister, which according to his own document, he has shared with Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana and Cocoa Board, could not be seen by the auditor who audit all of them together. So we were challenging and we wanted to argue that we don't think, even if it's a national security issue, it will have been exempted from the audit. So Justice Efia said, well, since it comes to national interest or national security, the institution which is clothed with the authority to interpret that is the Supreme Court. So she referred the case to the Supreme Court. We went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court asked the question, if they asked me to go back and look at the evidence, will I be okay with it? And I said through my lawyers, no, I will not be okay with it. And they said, why? I said, because the audit has ended. And according to Regulation 34 of the Audit Service Regulation, when an observation is raised on the field, you are supposed to respond on the field. But be it as it may, if you are not able to respond, Section 29 of the Audit Service Act provides that you have 30 days when you receive the management letter to respond. So there were 2 opportunities granted. And the audit is now completed. I've issued my report to Parliament. So if I go and have a look at it now, do I come back and issue a new audit report to say after the audit I've done another audit? So the audit is complete. That aside, we were setting a bad precedent. Bad precedence in the sense that when Honorable Kwesi Pratt is given 20 million to go and build a school, and we come and the school is not there, we can't find the school, we give you all the notices, you can't show us the school, we finish the audit and we surcharge you. Now a year or 2 later you say come and see the school is here, so remove your disallowance and surcharge. Thirdly, the Supreme Court was interfering in the audit process, because if you read Article 187 Clause 7A, it says the Auditor-General in the performance of his functions under the Constitution and any other law is not under the direction and control of any other person or authority. So they are also included. So they are also interfering by virtue of their position. I don't think the Constitution made even room for them. Well, they can say what I did is wrong or right, but they shouldn't come and instruct the audit to continue, an audit which has completed. So they rose and said they were going back into the chamber, and they will be back. After some time, we were waiting. They came, and the presiding judge, Justice Doche, said in their own wisdom, they have decided to direct the senior minister to give the evidence to me as the Auditor General, and I've been given 10 days to come back to the Supreme Court to tell the Supreme Court whether I was satisfied with the evidence or not. And they didn't give me even the option of saying anything. My lawyer rose, they said you should sit down. So he sat down. You know how nice a justice system is. Yeah. So he sat down in the court rose. So I had 10 days to do that. On the 5th day, the president wrote me and said I should proceed on leave. So I'd consumed 5 of the 10 days. And I think this was the 30th of June or so, one of the days, I've forgotten which of the months. The following day, the acting Auditor General wrote to the court that he has gone to see the evidence. He had planned an audit, done everything, and he is satisfied. And so the Supreme Court now wrote back to the High Court and said, well, the Auditor General says he is now satisfied with the case. So the judge at the High Court, Justice Efia, now ignored all the other issues, because we claimed that the procurement process was bad, because the payment was done before the contract was signed, and the contract was signed before they went for approval. And the approval was not even given to Honorable Asafo. The approval was given to Kandapa, National Security Ministry. So a Greek cannot use education's approval to go and do procurement. It is not done. So we argue that everything was irregular, but she ignored all of that and threw the disallowance and surcharge away. But let me quickly add one, that there was also another contentious issue. I had surcharged Zoom Lion 411 million at the time. and they had appeal at the High Court and lost. So they went to the Court of Appeal. And when they went to the Court of Appeal, it was the same time the case was referred to the Supreme Court because they challenged the original jurisdiction of the Auditor-General, whether it affects the private sector, and for the Supreme Court to decide. And we were in the Supreme Court to say there's even no need for you to decide anymore, because you decided it in Occupy Ghana vs. Attorney General. In Occupy Ghana vs. Attorney General, when we were given the consequential orders after the decision that the Auditor General must disallow and surcharge, you said you should surcharge persons, and you put into bracket, be he or be him a public officer or not. So you have even defined what person was. So you don't need to redefine it. So it actually covers.
It was mute.
Yes. But then my exit was very good. It paved way for these decisions to be taken. I was not surprised. Zoom Lion was let off the hook. But then I don't feel bitter about it. I tell people when they are surprised. I say, because to the best of my knowledge, I was doing the work to the best of my knowledge and with good intent. I assume the same for them, that they were also doing their best for the country.
You're talking specifically about Crow and Associates.
Yes.
What was the nature of the agreement? I mean, what kind of agreement was it? What services were they supposed to provide? You know, why were you not satisfied with what had been done?
Well, the agreement was for them to identify some transactions and recover some monies which were allegedly wrongly appropriated during the SWA regime, which I'll tell you bluntly did not require that type of services. In fact, it's like what has just happened. They have a go engage KPMG. Some very pedestral transactions, then they say they are going for an expert paying so much money. What is happening in the public service, which breaks my heart or breaks my heart most, is that anytime we suffer losses, government wastes additional money as if adding insults to injury, as if the injury is not enough. We say that our money is lost. They say, oh, you say your money is lost? Then you go and look for a blind man and say, go and look for the money for us. Definitely we won't find the money. So that was the argument. The argument is that, okay, so they started doing this and the money has been paid. The auditors raised issue about where is the contract based upon which the money was paid. Later on they found the contract and they say, but this contract, first and foremost, the money was paid prior to the contract date. Because the release letters were there. You say, so is this the contract which brought about the payment? It should have been the other way around. You enter into agreement, do the work, and you are paid. But well, okay, no problem. The contract was a single source procurement. And the law requires that you should get approval from the Public Procurement Authority. So where is that approval? Later on the approval came. And the approval is also dated after the contract. So the reverse gear. Instead of driving forward, they were applying reverse gear. Then the auditors look at the approval, and they came and showed it to me. Actually, they actually came to me and showed me the copy of the approval. I looked at it and said, have you looked at the approval? It's very irregular. One, it is not to the senior minister's office. It is to national security. So that by itself is a problem. Two, the approval is being given by PPA. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
It is being given by PPA, not the board. It is only the board which has the mandate under the PPA Act. If you read section 40 and 41, it says approval of the PPA board, not PPA. But it was signed, given approval coming from PPA. So I said there's a lot of irregularities about this. So if you have studied PPA approvals, I think we are doing education, so let me do this education for Ghanaians to understand. I've seen several approvals, they have been branching on TV and newspapers, that this PPA approval, and I just laugh and say this is a fake approval. Many times you see PPA hereby approves or authorizes you. PPA doesn't have that mandate. The genuine approvals, you see they state that at the board's meeting on 25th of this date or that month, meeting number 10 or 15 or whatever, the board approved. So what the PPA executive does is to communicate the approval. So if you look at them, I can even share some of them. You see that there are ones which were communicating the approval of the board, and those that the PPA, whoever he is, or whichever entity it is giving itself the mandate to give the approval. So I looked at it and said, no, this approval by itself is fake. Go to PPA and demand the board minutes. The meeting which granted this, it never came, which convinced me beyond doubt that somebody just tried to cover up and give the approval. So there were a lot of issues that we were going to come out with, but well, it was shortened, and I can't fault anybody. Like I told you, I believe Justice Efia was doing the job to the best of her ability, just as I was also doing mine. So that's where it ended.
Well, viewers, we're going to go for a short break, and we are in conversation with Mr. Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor-General, and we all know the circumstances under which he was ousted out of office. We are talking about his experiences, and we'll be talking also about his present and perhaps his future. After this short break, I'd like to know whether or not the evidence available to you suggested that Crow and Associates did the job. And if they did the job, how much did we recover and how much were they paid? Short break. Well, welcome back to Talk Time, and we are in this very exciting conversation with Mr. Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor General. Now, sir, did your work show that Crow and Associates did the work for which they were contracted?
I would say no, from my point of view, because remember I told you that the Supreme Court directed that they should provide the evidence to my office. And the evidence never came till the president kicked me out. So maybe the day I left, they brought the evidence to the acting Auditor General, who the next day said, yes, you are satisfied. So the only person who can answer this question, unfortunately, is the current Auditor General, who then was the acting Auditor General.
Did they manage to retrieve the monies that, were supposed to have?
I have no idea. Remember, I told you that the evidence
at
of
the time
done,
that you were in office,
yes,
did you find anything to suggest that Crow and Associates had done work leading to the retrieval of monies lost?
I think that was exactly the question that the auditors were asking. That where is the evidence? And because that evidence was not shown to them, that's why they flagged it up. So that never came to my notice or attention, and maybe my the current Auditor General, he has that information, because senior minister never provided one item or written or whatever to my office till I left office. And the next day I heard that, oh, the Auditor General has gone to see it and he is satisfied. I said, fine, this is good.
How much did we pay for this contract?
I don't remember the amount on the top of my head, but it's a little bit above 1 million. You will see that there was
$1 million.
$1 million, sorry, not cedis. It was quite, I didn't know we were going to go into this. I will have picked some information even from the net for you to see the rate. The rate was very generous. What some of them were earning a day, you won't get it in a month. In fact, not even a month, maybe 6 months, you may not get. It was huge sum. I don't want to quote the wrong figure, but it is available for Ghanaians to check. And you couldn't understand what role they were playing, but that is besides the question. If they were doing work which justifies that payment, we had no problem. So we were just looking for, or the auditors were just looking for evidence of the work you did for which these payments were being done.
Now, sir, one would have thought that auditing is a technical tax which uses imperial parameters in order to come to determinations.
Yes.
Your case suggests that the kind of audit you get depends on who does the audit. Is that true?
Yes and no. if done very well, it is very technical, analytical, and use parameters and evidence. So if I do the audit, my finding may be almost the same as yours. But remember, at times there can be differences. Differences may come as a result of the audit approach or the methodology and the sampling. Remember, we don't do a census, we sample. So for instance, if you say we are auditing Ministry of Finance, it doesn't mean we are going to look at each and every transaction, otherwise the audit will never finish. So we do what we call risk profiling. We look at what are the risky areas, where are the big monies being paid, and where are the weak controls, and so let's go and look at those areas and see how things are done. At times where the strong controls are, even that is where they have sneaked something through. So you may be looking this direction and the guy passes the other direction. So my findings may be different from the other findings. But given the same samples and the same audit methodology, the finding must be the same. But I made a statement to my colleague accountants that one thing I know, and I believe it to be true, is that there are several very knowledgeable chartered accountants in this country, Africa, and in the world. What makes them unprofessional is fear.
Fear?
Fear. That word fear. They fear for their lives. They fear for their jobs. They think their job is the same as their life. Oh, I may be attacked. I may be removed. I may lose my job. As a result of which, when they are threatened, they remove or they oversee or overlook some very key information. So, given the same level of courage, approach, and etc., I think we should have all arrive at the same conclusion.
But you lost your job.
Yes, I lost my job. I was not in any doubt that I'll lose my job. If you heard me earlier on, I had made several statements in that direction. I had stated very clearly that once you fight corruption, corruption will fight you back. There's no two ways about that. I remember in who I even drew attention to the people who had then started threatening that we will remove him, like how they removed the later commissioner, I've forgotten her name.
Charlotte Osei.
Charlotte Osei. And I stated that who's I care? I don't care, remove me. And I said people should know that leaving office is not the end of somebody's life. At times it may be a stepping stone for the person to go higher. So if we fear leaving our job, we compromise many times unnecessarily. And let me be honest with you, there are several good people in the public service who can help this country to become what it should be. But they want to keep their jobs.
But that doesn't make them good people, does it?
Yes. No, I'm talking about competent. They have the skills that they can use, but then they are not good people from your point of view because they put their personal interest above that of the public or the national interest. Yeah.
What gave you that courage? Because you also eat, you drink, you have to pay your rent and so on. What is it that gave you that courage?
Let me be honest with you. Many people don't know that I've worked in the public service for a very long time. I served in the Control Accountant General's Department for about 18 years, at least more than 18 years, before joining the World Bank. And I've seen corruption from Rawlings' time to date. And at times you look at it and you say, why are you doing this to our country? And I've always wished, if I had the opportunity, I would give a deadly blow to these guys. But I didn't have the opportunity. Okay? So that was the starting point. Then the World Bank employed me as the senior financial management specialist, and I was operating basically in the southeastern part of Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, etc. And the same issues were confronting me. Anywhere you go, you see it face to face. Feely. You see corruption everywhere. You ask the gentleman, how much is your monthly salary? It's not even up to $200 or maybe $300, maximum $500. And you see the vehicle is driving. You say, they bought this for you? He said, no, it's my own. I said, oh, okay. You are able to save out of your $500 every month and you're able to acquire this? How long have you been working anyway? At times 3 years, 5 years, and I say, oh, okay. there's a need for lifestyle audit. If you've ever heard of me saying that, I was convinced long ago before coming to office that we need lifestyle audit on public officers. Because if you look at what they earn and the type of life they live, there's a complete mismatch. So that job made me to come face to face with several other abuses of office, and I was dealing with Auditors General, trying to capacitate them to ensure that, because I think in the equation of fighting corruption, I believe, this is my conviction, that Auditors General have a key role to play in any country at all. If you have weak Auditor General, forget about fight against corruption. You see, because the others, you have to report to the police for them to go investigate. You have to report to the OSP for them. But the Auditor General, he has a constitutional duty every year to go out. And in the course of his work, he will find the corruption everywhere. But so if he is one who can overlook it, then you are finished. So I have always been urging Auditors General that why don't you do this? It's in your law, including the disallowance and surcharge, which is in our constitution, Article 187 Clause 7B. It's in several laws. Trust me, anywhere audit law was going to be promulgated in Africa, I picked that one first and showed to them that look at this provision, which is in the Ghanaian constitution. If you don't use this, then you are just creating, without any disrespect for your profession, you are just creating a journalist, not an auditor. Because he's just going to report, this is how they are stealing your money, and that is the end of the day. He has no mandate, but give him the mandate to take some action. And I show them that this is a provision not in just an act of parliament, but in the supreme law of Ghana, the constitution. And it is even an entrenched clause, which you can't just get up and use parliament to change. The process of changing it is very laborious and painful. So many countries in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa was the last one to adopt it before I left office. I was Auditor General when the Auditor General tested me, Daniel, you must be the first to hear this. The good news is that your mandate has been given by Parliament to also disallow a surcharge. So I was pushing for this, but it never went anywhere.
But in spite of the fact that you had this provision in the Constitution,
yes,
you could not apply it.
That is the point. And I had even helped.
So you need something more than provisions.
Yes, I'm coming. So I helped many countries to put it in their laws, but none of them applied it. Then I came to Ghana. When I was appointed, it was the first thing which hit me on the face. I said, Daniel, it's now your time to show that that must be done. Are you now going to tell other Auditors General that when you were now appointed, you could not do what you have been telling them to do? So I said, no, I will do it. Fortunately, and I say fortunately because the timing was very good. Before coming to office, Occupy Ghana had gone to Supreme Court against the Auditor General that he was sleeping on that responsibility. He was not disallowing and surcharge. And there was a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court to say no, Auditor General must do it, and they issued consequential orders that whenever you come across, you must do it. They even interpreted the may, which is in the Constitution, that may disallow and judge. Said that may here is not persuasive, it's binding. The only reason why it is may is because if they put shall, that means every audit must end up in a disallowance and surcharge. So that may turns into shall anytime you come across an unlawful expenditure. So they gave this interpretation. I said, oh, thank God, we will have to try it. So we went to town and started trying it. It is not easy. Let me also say that it is something which is a novelty, especially in the Bretton Woods, the British system. What do you call it?
The Commonwealth?
No, not Commonwealth. Those who do a British approach. Okay, I've forgotten the term, but the English approach of auditing. We have different type of approach. The French type of approach is different from the audit one. In the French system, most of the times, the auditor is a judge. So they call the court of accounts. So you go before the Auditor General, as he sits as a judge. In fact, when I was in Mozambique last year, I met the Auditor General. So I asked him in the order of judges, what is your rank? He says the number 2. I said, oh wow. So after the Chief Justice, he is the number 2. I said, wow. So this is somebody who goes, do the audit, make the findings, bring you to his own court, and
knocks you out.
I said, this is interesting. So I thought it was very necessary to do that, because if we don't implement those provisions of the Constitution, then the Auditor-General is, like I said, doing nothing more than you, the journalists, have been doing. You have been uncovering several wrongdoing, is that not it? Reporting on daily basis. So I think the Auditor-General must go a little bit further. I knew the challenge which will come later on, but I could not put my selfish interest above that of the nation. And I thought I should go to town and do it. And again, forgive me, but I was also convinced that in the fight against corruption, we should not be looking down there. We should be looking up there. Because in public financial management, it storms at the top and drizzles at the bottom. So we'll be wasting our resources and time going down the bottom looking for abuses. You go to Bumburgu Secondary School or Gabagawa whatever secondary school, and you find $100 Ghana cedis which cannot be accounted for. You put that in audit report, and they will travel at the cost of maybe 200 or 300 using public funds to come and defend it in parliament. I say, this is not what we have to look at. If you hit the minister, if you hit the chief director, if you hit the director, it will cascade. And that brings about the deterrence part of the whole thing. So that's why I was doing it. Not that I didn't know that there was risk. I knew the risk. I was ready to take that risk.
Well, viewers, we're going to go for another break, commercial break. And when we come back, I'd like to find out from our guest whether he's satisfied with the outcome of auditing. It's one thing auditing, establishing the facts and so on, but what happens, thereafter? Short break. Welcome back to Talk Time, and we have the privilege of talking to Mr. Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor-General. Now, sir, the Constitution, I suppose, insists on the establishment of a public tribunal to deal with cases of abuse, arising out of, Why has that tribunal not been established yet? Do you know?
To be honest with you, I have no idea why it has not been established. Let me also add to say that even if you look at Clause 8 of Article 35, it says the state shall take steps to eradicate corruption and abuse of public office. It's one of the directive principles of state policy. You can see for yourself or judge for yourself whether the state is rather facilitating corruption these days, or if I say these days, I'm not talking about this regime, over the years actually, whether the state has not been rather facilitating corruption and abuse of office. So there are a lot of good things in our Constitution. Yesterday I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I said, well, there are several areas of the Constitution which may need improvement if the opportunity is there. But being an accountant, I look at the balance, not the individual transactions. I look at the debit and credit. So if you say your accounts have a credit balance of 20 million, it doesn't mean there are no debits. There may be debit and credit, but the credit exceeds the debit, so the guy is okay. So, but if you look at it from that point of view, I think we have a good constitution, except that we have a good tool in the hands of a bad worker. It's just like, excuse me again for my bad examples, you sharpening a cutlass and giving to a madman, and he enters the street. You may find some few bodies being chopped into pieces. But then if you go into the bush, you may produce yam, you may produce cassava, you may produce maize, etc. for us. So I don't think that the Constitution is bad. There are several good things in our constitutions, but public office holders, or let me say political leaders in the country, have found it necessary to ignore them, not to do what they are supposed to do, and as a result, you and I, we are here. One of them which bleeds my heart is about fiscal decentralization. Why the fiscal management of the country is all within 3 kilometers square of Accra. So you do some work, even a teacher employed in Boku or Bolga, etc. His salary has to travel the full length of the country so that he comes here and they promote him or transfer him on the... I say, but as I'm sitting here, if you give me the chance, I can go on my phone and start checking my mails and etc. When you are in your farm, at times you can take a break and you start checking your mails wherever, provided there's a signal. So today's day and age, we are still centralized the fiscal management of the country, as a result of which the administrative structures created by the government have become postal agents, a waste of our resources. We have regional administration or coordinating council, we have district administration or coordinating council and sub-district coordinating, but they have no resources to prosecute the agenda of where they are. So a bridge breaks in a village somewhere, it has to, the requests have to travel all the way to Accra for the money to be made available. So why are they there? So these are some of the things which beat my mind, that government after government have overlooked the need for fiscal decentralization, which to me also fights corruption. In fact, it reduces corruption in the sense that, you see, anytime I sip water from this bottle, you see it going down because the quantity is small. Tell me how many tankers will I use on the sea, at the ocean, so that you can see that the water has reduced. So if you centralize, centralization breeds corruption. Otherwise, we should have had only one world president, so that we rule the whole world from one point of view. We need to decentralize such that funds follow function. There will be efficiency there. The decision making, the resources, as well as the activity, they are close to each other. It makes decisions efficient and less costly than what it has been all this while. So let me be very honest with you. We have a lot to do. Many times I look at public service and say, are people occupying public service just to make money or because they have something to offer? I think the second one is not the case. You see some people, the way they behave, the talents or the skills they have, which they can use to help the country, and they are not doing it. And I ask, so is it just that you want to benefit from the public resources or funds and not to offer something to your country? So that is where we are as a nation. You and I, we have a lot to do. Interrogate the work of government. And I also want to appeal. Public office holders should remember what they are called. They are called public servants. They are supposed to serve the interests of the public, not their interests. Many times I remember there was one function when the vice president was there, and I asked him, the current vice president, what is the meaning of the word public servant? Because it looks to me that that word has been turned upside down. Because a servant who the master cannot even enter his office, people going into a public servant's office, their hearts are beating, they are afraid. See, this is the director's office. Hey, you can't be on your, you can't do this, you can't. And I say, how do you go to your servant and you are so scared see your servant? So we must redefine public service, said that it must be a service which try to propagate the interests of the people instead of looking at the interests of the leaders. You know, that's how it was given to us by our colonial masters. And we were happy to collect that and replace the colonial masters. It was not to serve the interests, but to ensure we procure the interests or protect the interests of the colonial master. Now, when we took over, we became a replacement for the colonial master, such that the minister is not there, the chief director is not there, almost nothing moves in the ministry. The Auditor-General is not around, everybody is sitting. I said, no, your job is not to serve me. Your job is to serve Ghana. So every time you come to office, plan what you are doing to earn that your salary, which is serving the country. If you reorientate our public service, I think it will be good.
So you've seen the drama that unfolds in Parliament after the release of the Auditor-General's reports, Public Accounts Committee, public sittings.
Yes.
Any comments?
Don't lead me into temptation. Anytime I look at them doing their own thing, at times I laugh. And it's like a well-rehearsed drama. And the chairman will say, you honorable so take so, and the person comes and gives some wishy-washy explanation. And I remember there was one of the cases where they said there was light off, or it was a weekend, so they couldn't use their system. That's why they did it manual, and the light never came back. And so I'm like, you take all these type of explanations. The question I want to ask Public Accounts Committee is that the way they have been superintending over the audit report, if that report were about their property, would they treat it that way? Assuming your company, an audit report came and told you how they have misused resources, will you treat it the way they have been treating it? If yes, then congratulations to them. If no, then shame on them.
Are there some reforms that you'd like to see in the handling of the Auditor-General's report?
Exactly. First and foremost, one of the things that I think we should try and do very well is the disallowance and surcharge. I think it's a very important tool, not only because it can recover some of the money for us, it brings about deterrence. People know that, well, if I'm caught, I will not be set free. So remember, when we say surcharge, the Supreme Court defined it not to be recovery. It is recovery plus a penalty. So it means you take 10,000, the Auditor General may calculate and say, okay, you took 10,000, pay back 15 or 20,000. And me, to avoid arbitrariness, what I did was I chose to use the lending rate of the central bank. That I take it that you are borrowing government's money. So from that date, I calculate the interest till the day that you pay. So that you don't ask me, how did you give Mr. A this amount instead of Mr. B? I was expecting that that case will come out one day in court, that he doesn't like me, so see how big my surcharge is as against the other one. So surcharge and disallowance, I think, is a very important tool in our constitution, which if we are able to implement, I have the view that will bring about sanity. Because all this indiscipline is because there are no consequences for misbehavior. I argue and tell people that the Ghanaians working at the World Bank and IMF, etc., they are not angels than the rest of us. But they are disciplined because they know that nobody's going to listen to you. There's no room. Once you pull the water down, you are gone. Or the sanction will be applied without fear or favor. So if we're able to do that, I think it's good. But since the audit report does not only contain monies paid contrary to law, but also most of the times it has a lot of internal control issues, that is weak controls in place, which may occasion future losses and abuse of office. I think that the Public Accounts Committee should save themselves the time of sitting down and now asking director, so what have you done all these years? No, they should ask them to come with an action plan to address the issues prior to. So that report will have been with the committee. The committee will have interrogated it. If they are satisfied with what you say you are doing, I don't think we need even to invite you. So just say, well, given the control measures you say you are putting in place, we are giving you up to this date, implement them and report to us. That ends it. It's only those that they are not satisfied with that they may have to interrogate. And again, in some jurisdiction, specifically Kenya, I remember, their law provides that 3 months after receiving the audit report, they should sit on it. Ghana, there is no law. Therefore, you can hear today that they are going to sit on maybe 2020 or 2021 or even earlier date, so and so. Just as we say, justice delayed is justice denied. Also, that delay is also a loss of value to us as a country. So those changes, if they can happen, I think it will be good. Finally, we have introduced something we call audit committees, which have been given the mandate or the responsibility of ensuring that MDAs implement the recommendations of the Auditor General. That is complete wastage. It's complete nonsense. If a chief director, you are told that you are not wearing shoes, put on shoes, somebody has to come and supervise you wearing shoes. I think that the next thing which should happen is vacate your position. It's as simple as that. So Government should stop wasting our resources, as I said earlier on, throwing more resources at people. Whenever we talk about wastage, they create additional layer to waste more of our resources. I think audit committees is a completely useless concept. I've advocated this internationally. This is not the first time I'm talking about it. And so if you are in charge of running an organization and there are infractions, and the infractions have been brought to your attention, what do? You address them immediately. If you did not address them and it goes to parliament, they just give you a deadline by which, if you don't address them, you vacate your position or face the consequence. Do you have to set up a committee to go and do that? So these are some of the changes I think, if they are done, it will be good. Not to forget about internal audit. We are talking so far about the external audit. Internal audit is very, very, very important. You see, the external auditors are like those, I've forgotten the term they use in medical terms. Those who look at the dead body, I've forgotten. They come in when the person is dead. They can only tell you the cause is a heart failure. The pathologists, yes. The external auditors are like pathologists, but the person is dead anyway. In the first place, he's dead. Okay? But the internal auditors are like physicians. They take care of you when you are still alive. Okay, they are on the spot. So we need to strengthen internal audit, make them independent, make them professional, resource them, pay them well, and that will save us more money than audit coming in a year or more later to discover how wasteful our resources have been.
Another short break, and when we come back, I'd like to ask a very simple question. You are still alive, appear to have a lot of energy. Yes. What do you want to do for Ghana? Short break. Well, welcome back to Talk Time, and we are in a conversation with Mr. Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor-General, now doing many things for many organizations, including the World Bank and so on. Now, sir, you are retired, but obviously not retarded.
Yes.
Lot of energy and so on.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself contributing to Ghana's development, especially the fight against corruption?
Well, thank you for that. Let me say that one thing that I don't think I will stop doing is advocating a fight against corruption, because I make it clear, and I want to state it clearly again, that even us, we are fighting. Look at the level of corruption. So what do you think will happen if we stop? So all those who are fighting corruption and are about giving up because corruption is fighting them, I encourage them that never let us give up. If we give up, it will be terrible. It's just like disease control. Even now that there are a lot of researches, interventions to prevent and preempt or cure diseases, we are still dying of so much sickness. Assuming they said we have given up, no more intervention, I think we will all die within a very short time. So it is with corruption. Corruption is one big infection or disease, the effect of which it affects everybody, including the corrupt themselves. Because if you divert the money for the road, little do you remember that you may enter pothole and then you burst your tie or go into a ditch or die as a result of that. So the fight against corruption, I will continue to advocate for it, not only in Ghana, worldwide, but Ghana is basically at the top of my heart. Anytime a group of people want us to sit down and see or discuss how do we address those institutional arrangements and procedures and policies, I am available to do that. But personally, I don't have intention of setting up a committee or a company, etc. of myself. I don't want to go into that because I know how corruption fights back. They will even tell you the land on which you are is supposed to be for something else before you realize they have demolished the building. If you are fighting corruption, you must be very careful of the areas you enter. So from time to time, I give talk. I go to University of Ghana or Association University, etc., and I share these ideas with especially the young ones who are coming. And one thing which breaks my heart is if you hear the extent to which our younger ones are corrupt. It is alarming. I thought we should catch them young so that if we are bad, sorry about that, but they can replace us and it is good. And you go to the university and they tell the stories you hear there, and I'm like, oh my God. So are you guys surprised that people are corrupt in public office? Is that not the produce that you are carrying out? You are producing the thing. So why are you corrupt? Why are you surprised? So, but then we should not give up. We should continue doing whatever we are doing, and I'm sure one day, with the right leadership, Ghana should be able to make a good turn and get things better than what we are doing now or having now.
Are there some reforms that you would advocate for the Auditor-General's outfit?
For the Auditor-General's outfit, I think it is quite okay. The office need only to be resourced, that is all. Because it has structures far bigger than you can expect in many jurisdictions in the world, even the developed countries. Okay, in many jurisdictions you will find the Auditor-General's office only at the center. It's highly centralized. The rest become traveling and etc. But the Ghana Audit Service, or the Office of the Auditor-General in Ghana, has regional offices in almost all the regions. I say almost all the regions because, you know, there are some 6 regions which were just recently created. I don't know, they secured fund to get them office, but I don't know how it has gone up to now, including the new districts. And so there are district offices also. So what they need is resources, because the audit is something that you normally don't just do sitting in your office. You have to go and verify most of the times. And if there is one recommendation or there is one change in approach that I will advocate that they do more of performance audit, or what people refer to as value for money audit. We do more of that, because given the level of technology and knowledge today, if you want evidence to support that I bought this, people can go on the net, produce genuine documents, source documents, etc., so that you yourself will even clap for them. Meanwhile, it is still fake. But then the question is, are we getting value for our money? If it is your money, will you use it to buy what you bought? Was there a need for it? And the value at which you are getting it, is it good? And when we finish buying it, you won't believe that if you go to the public service, at times they buy items, and our procurement officers will tell you that they follow the due procurement process. There is value for money. And I ask, where's the value for money for the water you bought and threw away? You are not drinking the water. You bought the water to be drunk and you are not drinking it. I hope you saw a lot of state vehicles which are rotting. You saw even structures put in place for hospitals or schools or for whatever, which are just deteriorating. So how do we define value for money? If we can change the audit to do more of value for money audit, it will help the country, because the regularity audit, which is the financial audit and etc., good as it is, can easily be beaten these days by technology. And if we can do value for money more than those audits, I think it will be good. This is not a recommendation for only Ghana Audit Service. It's a recommendation I'll be making to the Auditors General wherever I met them. They say, look, do you know that the source document that you were happy with, for all you know, is fake? And I had a situation where I showed them 2 documents and say, this one and this one, which one is original? They look at it and they say, as for this one, this is original, this is also original. They say, how can you have 2 originals? So technology has made it so that the fake one can even look far better than the original one. So let's push our attention more into performance or value for money audit. Thank you.
Well, sir, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we do hope that from time to time, when you pass through Ghana, yes, you will give us the benefit of your experience. Thank you so very much for coming to us. Thank you, sir.
No, it's a pleasure, and thanks for hosting me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, viewers, we were in a conversation with Mr. Daniel Domelevo, former Auditor General. You heard it all. Please keep tuned, stay tuned with Pan-African Television, because we give you the best in everything, you know. Best in news, best in current affairs, best in entertainment, best in everything. Stay with us until we meet again next week. Bye-bye from all of us at Pan-African Television. The producer of the show, George Biner, the director, cameraman, everybody. Bye-bye and a happy new year to all of you. Bye-bye.